This is a self-playing presentation about the Synthesis Personality and Emotional Intelligence Questionnaire, which is published by MySkillsProfile. In the next 15 minutes, we will look at the purpose of the test, some different applications for it, how the test was developed, and the models of personality and emotional abilities that lie behind the test. We will define what the scales measure, how to interpret scale scores, and the design and contents of the computer-generated feedback report. In the final part of the presentation, we will cover the technical properties of the instrument. The Synthesis Assessment Test has two purposes. First, at the individual level, the purpose of the instrument is to assess an individual's personality and emotional abilities, and help them understand how their personality and emotional abilities affect their behavior and work performance. Second, at the corporate or organizational level, the purpose of the instrument is to benchmark the personality traits and emotional abilities of a group of executives, to, for example, help understand where their strengths and weaknesses lie, and to help design learning and development programs. The test is suitable for different applications in recruitment, selection, and development. Here are some examples. In selection, the test provides information to help understand the work styles of candidates, and use in, for example, for competency-based interviews. In assessment centers, the synthesis profile provides information about a candidate's emotional abilities and style, to put alongside information from in-tray and group exercises. In executive education programs, the instrument will help students to understand and reflect on their strengths and development needs. In coaching, the interpretive report provides a structure for the coach and client to jointly explore the client's behavioral style and skills. And in team building, sharing profiles will help the team to understand the preferred styles of team members. Finally, the data from a group of completed profiles provides metrics about a group's personality traits and emotional abilities. The design aim was to produce a joined-up picture and rapid assessment of a person's personality and emotional abilities. The conceptual framework for the test was based on the Big Five model of personality and the Mayer, Solovey, Caruso framework of emotional intelligence. The test was developed using the data from two existing broad bandwidth inventories, the Big Five Personality Questionnaire and the Emotional Intelligence Questionnaire, which are both published by MySkillsProfile. The items for the synthesis scales were identified using factor analysis, and this procedure resulted in an inventory comprising 5 personality scales, 6 emotional ability scales, and a measure of socially desirable responding. The information about the test's reliability and validity is based on two very large international comparison groups. The norms for the instrument were generated from the data from the two existing broad bandwidth inventories. This slide illustrates the synthesis concept model of personality and emotional intelligence. The synthesis questionnaire is designed to provide information about an individual's behavioral style and fitness, based on an assessment of their personality traits and emotional abilities. Synthesis measures 11 dimensions of personality and emotional ability. 5 dimensions cover the Big Five factors of personality, and 6 dimensions cover different aspects of emotional intelligence. Synthesis also provides single measures of personality and emotional intelligence, based on a person's total scores on each of the sub-tests. This table defines what the synthesis personality scales measure. The test provides a single measure of personality, based on the concept of a general personality factor. According to Rushton, 2008, a general factor of personality, GFP, occupies the apex of the hierarchy of personality, as well as the apex of the hierarchy of personality disorders, in the same way that a general factor of mental ability occupies the apex in the organization of cognitive abilities. High scores on the GFP indicate what is meant by a good personality, and low scores indicate what is meant by a difficult personality, and the GFP can be viewed as a dimension of social effectiveness. Rushton argues that the GFP probably arose through evolutionary selection for socially desirable traits that facilitate performance. You will find more detailed descriptions of the scales, and how to interpret scale scores, in the user manual. This table is in the same format as the previous one. It shows what the synthesis emotional ability scales measure. According to Mayer, Solovey and Caruso, 2002, a general factor of emotional intelligence occupies the apex of the hierarchy of emotional abilities, in the same way that a general factor of mental ability occupies the apex in the organization of cognitive abilities. Synthesis provides a single measure of an individual's emotional intelligence, based on their scores on the 6 ability scales. High EQ scores in this test indicate that a person has a broad range of emotional abilities, including the ability to perceive, communicate, empathize, understand, use and manage feelings and emotions. Consult Chapter 3 of the User Manual, to deepen your understanding of the scales. This is an example of the more detailed scale descriptions that you will find in the User Manual. This slide shows how to interpret high, moderate, and low scores on the scale that measures the general factor of personality, GFP. It gives short descriptions of what different scores mean. High scorers are likely to be altruistic, agreeable, relaxed, conscientious, sociable, and open, with high levels of well-being and self-esteem. By contrast, low scorers are more difficult to get along with than the average person. They tend to be less altruistic, less agreeable, less relaxed, less conscientious, less sociable and less open to change than the average person. However, it is important to analyze an individual's personality profile, as it is possible to have a high or low GFP score without having a high or low score on every Big 5-4. Synthesis uses the standard 10, STEN for short, scoring approach. To help users and test takers understand what different STEN scores mean, the synthesis interpretive model breaks the STEN range into 5 categories. The meaning of each of the categories is defined using percentile meanings and descriptions of competence. This slide illustrates the approach. For example, a STEN score of 8 means that the test taker has scored equal to, or higher than, 90% of the benchmark group. It also indicates that the area in question is an outstanding strength. Looking at the middle of the scale, a STEN score of 5 suggests that the test taker has average ability, and the area in question is a mid-range skill. And a STEN score of 3 is a lower than average score, indicating that the skill assessed is an area for improvement. The synthesis feedback report is written in the second person, self-help style, and is a mixture of text and graphics. The computer-generated feedback report has 6 sections. Section 1 gives a brief introduction to the questionnaire, explaining what the instrument measures, and how the scoring system works. Section 2 provides concise descriptions of what each of the 11 synthesis scales measure. Section 3 provides a graphic profile of the test taker's scale scores. Section 4 provides an executive summary of the results of the assessment, covering the test taker's GFP score, their EIQ score, and their impression management score. Section 5 provides a scorecard covering 16 emotional competencies, along with summary descriptions of competence. Section 6 gives guidance on development, with practical tips and suggestions for performance improvement, in a downloadable booklet. This slide illustrates the format of the synthesis graphic profile. The profile shows the test taker's scores on 2 global factors, the general factor of personality, GFP, and the emotional intelligent quotient, EIQ. The profile also shows the test taker's scores on 5 personality factors, often referred to as the Big 5, or ocean personality factors, and 6 emotional ability factors. The last scale in the chart shows the test taker's score on the impression management scale. This slide illustrates the test taker's scorecard on 16 emotional competencies, covering 4 key areas: work ethic, social skills, innovation and change, and feelings and emotions. These scales cover key competencies in the Emotional Competence Framework, published by the Consortium for Research on Emotional Intelligence. The test takers' scores on the 16 competencies are derived from their scores on the primary personality and emotional ability scales. For example, the test taker's achievement drive score is based on their scores on the conscientious and achieving personality scale, and the extrovert and outgoing personality scale. The test taker's score on the empathy scale is based on their scores on the communicating emotions ability scale, and the sympathizing with emotions ability scale. The user manual provides details about which scales are used in the calculation of these emotional competency scores. This is an extract of the synthesis feedback report. It covers the test taker's profile on 4 competencies, which provide a picture of their work ethic, achievement drive, altruism, initiative, and optimism. The report is in a summary tabular format, and it identifies the test taker's skill level in each area, and it provides a concise description of their competence. The final section in the table poses development questions for the test taker to consider. Development questions are tailored to scale scores. The final section of the feedback report gives some generic development advice on competencies and skills. The report then provides some practical tips and recommendations, in a downloadable document, on things to do to improve emotional competency and personal performance. This slide is an extract from the guide, and it covers 2 areas of work ethic, achievement drive, and altruism. Synthesis was designed to meet the standards of a modern psychometric test. The questionnaire has a median scale internal consistency reliability of 0.85, in the range defined as good by the EFPA review model. The median correlation between the scales and self-assessed job performance was 0.27. This is defined as adequate in the EFPA review model. The median correlation between the primary scales and marker variables from the International Personality Item Pool was 0.79. This is defined as excellent in the EFPA review model. The instrument is supplied with 1 set of international norms, based on a very large sample of 26,000 respondents. A sample of this size gets a 5-star rating in the EFPA review model. The majority of respondents came from the USA, Canada, the UK, and Australia. Although there were statistically significant differences in the sample, related to gender, age, ethnic origin and nationality, the observed differences were very small. This indicates that there is no need for separate norms, related to gender, age, ethnic origin or nationality. Synthesis will be reviewed by the British Psychological Society Psychological Testing Centre, and the Burroughs Centre for Testing. If you are interested in using synthesis, but want to know more about it, reading the user manual and having a look at a sample report are a good place to start. You can download these documents using the links below, and you can get them from our website. Thank you for your interest in the test.